Breaking news out of Ottawa today, news that millions of Canadians have been waiting on, watching for, and in many cases, depending on. Prime Minister Mark Carney has stepped to the podium with a message that could change the daily reality for seniors, families, and working Canadians from coast to coast. For decades, there have been whispers, promises, and political posturing around pension reform. But now, in a dramatic shift, Canada's leader has confirmed sweeping changes to the Old Age Security Program, the Canada Pension Plan, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement. This is not just another policy tweak. This is being described as one of the most significant reforms to Canada's retirement system in a generation. And the reaction, both relief and outrage, is already echoing across the country. To understand why this moment feels historic, we need to look back at the struggles that brought us here. For years, seniors groups have been warning Ottawa, the cost of living is climbing faster than fixed incomes can handle. Groceries that cost $120 a decade ago now ring up closer to $220. Average rents in mid-sized cities like London, Hamilton, and Kelowna have doubled since 2015. Medications not fully covered by provincial plans can run hundreds of dollars a month. And then there are the small, quiet decisions, the ones that don't make headlines, but shape lives. Seniors skipping meals to save money. Grandparents putting off dental work. Retired couples deciding whether they can afford to heat their homes properly through another brutal winter. For many, old age security, the OAS, has been the backbone of retirement. The basic monthly benefit, currently just over $713 for most seniors, has offered some relief. But with inflation surging, that amount often barely stretches to cover utilities. The Canada Pension Plan, calculated from a lifetime of contributions, can add more.
And make no mistake, if Alberta ever chose to leave Canada, the United States would be the first to feel the impact. Energy pipelines, trade deals, cross-border security, even the delicate balance of NATO commitments, all of it could be thrown into chaos. Trump, never one to stay silent on matters that affect American power and influence, has already signaled his support for Alberta asserting its independence, calling it a bold move by a strong people. Those words alone have rattled Ottawa and fueled speculation that Alberta might already be coordinating with Washington behind closed doors. And yet, here's the twist, there's no official announcement. No press conference with Danielle Smith. No signed referendum bill on Carney's desk. What we have instead is the classic Canadian mix of leaks, speculation, and political theater. Documents suggesting a full vote. Advisors hinting at a spring referendum. Strategists whispering that the campaign has already begun, quietly, in church halls, town meetings, and business boardrooms across Alberta. The lack of clarity only adds to the tension. Because the more Ottawa insists that nothing is happening, the more Albertans believe something big is happening. Let's talk about Danielle Smith herself. To her supporters, she is the premier who finally dared to stand up to Ottawa, a voice that refuses to be drowned out by Eastern politicians who don't understand life on the prairies. To her critics, she is playing with fire, stoking division for political gain, and risking Alberta's prosperity in the process. But love her or loathe her, one thing is undeniable. She has captured the attention of the entire nation. Every time she speaks about Alberta's rightful place, every time she insists on fairness, she plants the seed of possibility in the minds of Albertans. And tonight, with the idea of a separation vote date being confirmed or nearly confirmed, that seed feels like it's ready to sprout.
By cutting elsewhere. Economists, too, are divided. Some say the move is overdue and will inject money back into local economies as seniors spend more. Others warn that expanding benefits without increasing contributions could put pressure on the sustainability of CPP. And then there are the voices of seniors themselves. Outside a community center in Calgary, one retiree shared her thoughts. For the first time in years, I might actually be able to buy fresh produce without watching every penny. It may not sound like much, but it feels like breathing room. Another, in Montreal, was more skeptical. They've promised increases before, but by the time the money comes, everything costs more. I'll believe it when I see it. The timeline adds to the suspense. While some adjustments will take effect in 2026, others will roll out more slowly, stretching into 2027 and 2028. That means Canadians must wait to feel the full impact, and in the meantime, the rising cost of living remains a relentless challenge. Still, for many, tonight's announcement represents a turning point. It acknowledges, officially and publicly, that the old model wasn't working, that too many Canadians, after a lifetime of work and taxes, were falling through the cracks in their final decades. But what does this mean for the country as a whole? On the one hand, more secure seniors could reduce the strain on food banks, healthcare systems, and emergency housing. On the other, it raises questions about fairness for younger Canadians, already carrying high student debt, housing costs, and taxes. Supporters frame the reforms as a matter of justice. After all, these are the people who paid into the system, who built the highways, staffed the hospitals, and raised the families that form the backbone of the nation. Detractors warn that without structural adjustments, like higher CPP contributions from workers, Canada could face tough choices in a decade's time. For now, though, the human impact is what stands out. A retired teacher in Regina said she can finally plan to visit her grandchildren without worrying how to cover airfare. A former factory worker in Windsor said he may be able to replace his broken glasses without postponing it another year. These are small victories, but multiplied across millions, they reshape the texture of daily life. As Prime Minister Carney concluded his announcement, he framed it not as an endpoint, but as a beginning. This is about restoring dignity. This is about ensuring that no Canadian feels forgotten after a lifetime of contributions. It is not perfect, and it will not solve every challenge. But it is a start. The coming months will reveal how the reforms are received, how they are implemented, and whether they withstand the political and economic pressures sure to follow. But tonight, one thing is certain: the debate over pensions is no longer on the margins. It is front and center in Canada's national conversation. For millions of Canadians, that means hope, mixed with caution, laced with questions, but hope nonetheless. Because when governments change the way a nation supports its elders, they don't just adjust numbers on a page. They touch the daily choices, the quiet sacrifices, and the very dignity of life itself. But there is another layer to this unfolding story, one that hasn't received as much attention, but could be just as consequential. For decades, experts have warned that Canada's pension programs were designed for an economy that no longer exists. When OAS was introduced in the 1950s, the average Canadian lived just a few years past 65. Today, many live well into their 80s or even 90s. That means pensions must stretch across decades, not years. Add in the surge of retiring baby boomers, and the pressure on the system grows heavier by the month. Seniors are not just recipients of aid, they are active consumers. They buy groceries, support local pharmacies, use public transit, and help keep small businesses afloat. The ripple effect of stronger pensions, according to one estimate, could inject over $12 billion annually back into the economy. Yet, critics warn of the trade-offs. Younger Canadians, already struggling to save for their own retirements, fear that tonight's reforms could mean higher payroll deductions in the years ahead. The question, then, becomes generational: will this moment be remembered as a lifeline for today's seniors, or as a burden passed quietly on to their grandchildren? And as the sun sets on this day in Canadian history, seniors across the country are asking, is this the moment everything changes? Or just another promise waiting to be tested by time? If you found this update important, don't forget to hit that like button, share this with friends and family who need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the breaking stories that impact your future, your retirement, and your Canada.